Hello, everyone. I am Sophia, born and raised in Maryland, a peaceful place with tree-lined streets and long rows of houses. There, I spent most of my childhood with my parents. My mother was a gentle woman, always smiling at me from early morning while she prepared breakfast until nightfall in the small kitchen. She loved my father deeply. My father, a man of few words but very responsible, always worked hard to care for the family. We lived together in a small, simple house, but it was filled with love. In my memory, everything was perfect, or at least it seemed so. But then, when I was only 15, my world suddenly collapsed. My mother passed away after a short and sudden illness so quickly that I didn't even understand what was happening. The feeling of emptiness grew as I watched my father, now lonely, in a house that had once been filled with laughter. We continued to live, but we were no longer the family we once had been. Every morning I went to school. Every night I came home to the same kitchen, the same simple meals, but my mother was no longer there. Each meal had only 2 people, but the distance between my father and me felt greater than the space of the house. When I turned 18, my father remarried. It was a shock, even though deep down I knew he deserved to be happy again. His new wife, my stepmother, was a gentle and kind woman. She brought with her a son, Ethan, who was a year younger than me. At first, it felt strange, as if my life had been turned upside down once more. The peace I had known was gone. I always felt awkward trying to adjust to this new life with a younger brother. Ethan had never done anything to make me uncomfortable, yet I struggled to fit in. He was quiet, and perhaps like me, was learning to adapt to the new situation. In the evenings, the whole family would gather in the living room. Dad and my stepmother would sit together talking about work or future plans, while Ethan and I exchanged slight, confused glances that often made me quickly look away. Family meals gradually became occasions for us to know each other better, albeit in a strange way. Ethan often picked up food for me, a small gesture that felt oddly personal. He rarely spoke, but sometimes he'd give me longer glances than usual. I wondered if I was simply being too sensitive, or if it was just the way a new brother might look at his sister. Yet, as time passed, there was an unspoken tension between us that neither of us dared to address. These feelings should have been only sisterly, but I found it increasingly difficult to distinguish them. There were moments during the day when, if Ethan was nearby, my heart would suddenly race. I despised it. I hated that I had begun to see him as more than just a brother. One late night, I heard light footsteps in the hallway. Ethan slipped into my room. Normally, we'd have a brief conversation before he returned to his room, but this time, he lingered longer than usual. His eyes met mine, holding my gaze, as if he wanted to say something. I didn't know how to react. I only felt the air between us, growing strangely thick, a heavy silence stretching on. I felt confused, and before I could think further, I nodded slightly, inviting him to stay a little longer. We sat there in the darkness, in the dim light, like 2 strangers, close in a way that no one could explain. To be honest, I liked Ethan quite a bit. My brother was very handsome in a way that I couldn't help but notice. Sometimes I wondered if I should feel guilty about it, since Ethan was my brother in name after all. But those thoughts were often fleeting, dismissed by more logical reasons, like the closeness of living in the same house or the natural harmony of two young people sharing a confined space. We slept in separate but nearby rooms, both on the second floor, while my father and stepmother slept downstairs. This setup occasionally led to awkward situations. Ethan and I were both at crucial stages in our lives. I was a freshman in college, and he was a senior in high school, busy preparing for exams. We were both trying to adjust to our new rhythms, but the tension between us was undeniable. Some evenings after school, we'd sit on the living room sofa, the glow of the TV illuminating the room softly, yet both of us were silent, not knowing what to say. The feelings between Ethan and me were ambiguous, not exactly what you'd expect from normal siblings. I realized that I liked him in a way that went beyond family love. This confused me, but I couldn't deny that every time I saw him, my heart beat faster. One quiet evening, like so many others, my parents left for a trip, planning to be away for about 5 days, leaving only Ethan and me at home. At first, we thought it would be a time to relax, away from adult supervision. That night, we sat together in the living room and turned on a romantic movie. Not one we were particularly interested in, just something to pass the time. I prepared some snacks, dried squid, fruit, and a few cans of beer to relax after a busy week. The movie started off light, and we chatted as usual, filling the quiet house with small talk and light laughter. But then an unexpected scene appeared, a passionate embrace between the characters. Suddenly, we both fell silent, our laughter and carefree conversation disappearing. The space between us felt stuffy, no longer the comfortable distance of two siblings sharing a casual moment. I felt Ethan's gaze on me, different from usual. A warmth began to spread through me, but I stayed silent, gripping my beer can to keep calm. Before I could fully understand what was happening, Ethan embraced me. His movements were strong, unexpected, and irresistible. His kisses were urgent, as if all the emotions we'd been holding back had suddenly erupted. I couldn't resist. My heart was in turmoil, but my body reacted differently. In that moment, we crossed the boundaries of sibling affection, right there in the darkness of the quiet room. That night was no longer ordinary. It marked a major turning point, a change I knew could never be undone. That night, all boundaries were broken. I couldn't deny that I'd let my emotions take control, allowing something to happen that shouldn't have. We spent the whole night together, crossing lines we hadn't acknowledged before. We didn't say much. Everything seemed to happen instinctively, as if fueled by a long suppressed impulse. The closeness we'd tried to keep at bay was gone, replaced by emotions we could no longer control. The next morning, as gentle sunlight filtered through the curtains, I lay next to Ethan in what was supposed to be my own peaceful space. Everything around me was the same as any other day. The room was quiet, the light was warm, but inside, something had irrevocably changed. We didn't say much, just exchanged a silent look, and perhaps we both understood that from this moment on, our lives would no longer be the same. In the following days, with my father and stepmother still away, we continued to make the most of that time. The awkwardness was gone, replaced by a strange comfort. We lived as if we were two people in love, free from prying eyes. Meals were no longer family meals, but private moments, just for me and Ethan. Every night we sat together, watched movies, talked, and eventually ended the night in the same bed. During those days, I let myself forget reality, forgetting that Ethan and I were only siblings in name. But eventually, the day came when my parents returned. As they walked into the house, everything went back to normal. Ethan and I resumed our roles as siblings, under the same roof, acting as if nothing had happened, as if every intimate moment had been a fleeting dream. My parents didn't notice anything. They smiled, chatting about their trip, while Ethan and I sat silently, exchanging glances that held our shared secret. We knew we'd have to keep it hidden forever. Ethan and I resumed our roles as two siblings under one roof. We acted as if nothing had happened, as if every intimate moment had been nothing more than a fleeting dream. My parents didn't notice. They kept smiling and chatting about their travels, while Ethan and I sat there silently, exchanging glances and knowing that our secret would have to remain hidden forever. In the months that followed, our secret relationship continued. Sneaky moments, long, sleepless nights, these soon became habits. Whenever my parents went to bed early or had to go out, Ethan would quietly slip into my room and we'd cling to each other as if there were no barrier between us. By day, we tried to act normal. Family meals continued as usual. My parents suspected nothing, and Ethan and I would only make occasional eye contact. This hidden tension made me feel short of breath, yet I couldn't stop. Guilt was slowly eating away at me, but it wasn't strong enough to make me let go. As my secret life with Ethan deepened, I feared I wouldn't be able to escape. I knew I couldn't let things go any further, so I started quietly taking birth control pills, carefully hiding them from everyone. I feared the consequences of this relationship, but instead of ending it, I chose to control it. I tried to convince myself that everything was still within reach, that we would never, ever be discovered. About a year later, Ethan graduated and went to college. He had to leave home, moving to another city to continue his education. When he left, I knew things would change, even if I didn't want to admit it. The distance made things harder. No more sneaky nights. No more quiet moments together. It forced us to put our relationship on hold. But the nostalgia for what we'd shared lingered. After graduating, I decided to find a new path for myself. I applied for a job as an office worker at a digital company. The job wasn't anything special, but it gave me stability and distance from the emotional turmoil of those years. Then I met him, the man who changed my life forever. He was the owner of a large hair salon in the city, a calm, confident, and charming man. From our first meeting, I was struck by his strength and gentleness. He was unlike anyone I had ever met before. Every conversation, every look he gave me made me feel safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. We fell in love quickly, and everything happened naturally, as if we were destined to find each other. Not long after, we got married and began building the family life I'd always dreamed of. Now we have a child, and my life feels more complete than ever. Days spent with him and our child have helped me temporarily forget the painful memories of the past, though they still return in moments of weakness I knew I had finally found a new home, a man who deserved all my love and respect. Yet, somewhere in the back of my mind, memories of Ethan and those secret days hadn't completely disappeared. I wondered if I would ever truly let go of it all. But I had a family to protect now, and that was what mattered most. Still, a part of me feels guilty toward my husband. He is a wonderful man, always showing me genuine care and love. But every time I look into his eyes, I feel a weight on my heart, as if I'm hiding a part of my past that he should know. I don't know if I should tell him about what happened with Ethan. Sometimes the thought keeps me up at night, torn between telling him everything or keeping this secret forever. I fear that if I confess, he'll never look at me the same way again. That everything we've built, the little family I cherish, could crumble because of a confession. But on the other hand, continuing to live with this secret feels like a rock weighing me down, making me feel undeserving of the love he gives so freely. Honestly, I don't know what to do. I'm at a crossroads, unsure of the right path. Perhaps after hearing my story, you might criticize me for hurting people, for the mistakes I've made. But I can only ask, if you were in my place, what would you do? Would you choose to confess the truth, knowing it might shatter everything, or keep silent, letting the past sink deep into memory, hoping it would never resurface to hurt those you love? I hope to receive your advice in the comments below. If you were in my situation, what would you do? Should I confess everything and face the consequences, or keep this secret to protect what I have? I welcome any advice, sympathy, or criticism, because truly I'm at a crossroads, not knowing which path is right.